The signs, they were always there, weren't they? Those little, almost imperceptible comments, the way their eyes would just slide off me, the constant, nagging feeling of being an afterthought in my own marriage. But I'd pushed them down, ignored them, because I loved Mark. I genuinely thought with enough patience, enough effort from my side, things would eventually click, they'd change. They didn't. Instead, I found myself on what was supposed to be a fun, relaxing family vacation to Hilton Head, South Carolina. But it twisted into something else entirely. Something I will carry with me always. We'd just arrived at this beautiful resort, the kind you see splashed across glossy travel magazines. White sand stretching out, palm trees swaying gently, the rhythmic crash of waves in the distance. I was actually excited. A tiny, hopeful part of me thought, maybe this time. Maybe Richard and Susan, my and minus laws, would finally thaw. Maybe we'd laugh together, share stories, actually bond like a family. How wrong I was. That very first night, we headed to a rather nice restaurant for dinner. The host showed us to a long, perfectly set table, plenty of room for all of us. I was just about to slide into the seat next to Mark when Richard, my father Manoas and my Gislaw, spoke up, his voice casual but firm. "Oh, there must be a mistake," he said, a slight shake of his head. "She'll need her own table." I blinked, the words not quite registering. Surely I'd misheard. "Excuse me?" I asked. Susan, my mother Manoas and Gislaw, didn't even bother to look up from her menu. "It's just how we do things," she murmured. My gaze flew to Mark, expecting him, needing him to say something. To tell them how utterly ridiculous this was, that I was his wife, for crying out loud, not some stranger they'd picked up off the street. Instead, he just sighed. A small, almost imperceptible shrug. "It's just their way," he muttered, avoiding my eyes. Their way. So I sat at my own table. Alone. A little island of one in a sea of their supposed family unity. Looking back, I should have walked out right then and there. But I didn't. I stayed. I told myself it was just some bizarre, archaic tradition, a one me knows off absurdity. It wasn't. The next morning, I woke up early, genuinely trying to rally, ready to join them for breakfast. I made my way down to the hotel restaurant, expecting to see them, maybe even hoping for an apology, or at least an acknowledgement. They weren't there. I texted Mark. Silence. I must have wandered around that resort for the better part of half an hour, feeling increasingly foolish, before I finally spotted them. They were already at a large table, halfway through their meal, laughing and chatting as if everything was perfectly normal. As if I didn't even exist. I walked up, confusion and hurt swirling inside me. "Why didn't you tell me you were coming down?" Richard barely glanced up from his newspaper. "We assumed you'd figure it out." Susan sipped her coffee, a picture of unbothered elegance. "It's just how we do things." I looked at Mark. He was already eating, meticulously cutting into his pancakes, acting as if this was the most natural thing in the world. And that's when it hit me, a cold, hard wave of realization. I wasn't part of their family. I never had been. And Mark? He wasn't on my side. He was never going to be. The rest of the trip just followed that same miserable pattern. Every single meal, I was relegated to my solitary table. Every group activity they conveniently forgot to tell me about. They went on a private boat tour, I found out when I scrolled past their beaming pictures on Instagram. They had a fancy wine tasting, I only realized when I walked past them in the lobby. All dressed up and heading out, me in my casual resort wear, clearly not invited. Later, I tried to talk to Mark about it, my voice carefully neutral, trying to keep the hurt from spilling over. "You could have texted me," I said. He just sighed, that same weary sigh, as if I was the one being unreasonable. "It's just their way," he repeated, the now minus familiar refrain. That was the only explanation he ever offered. By the fourth day, something in me just snapped. I gave up. I stopped trying to bridge the gap, stopped asking, stopped expecting anything. They wanted me to be invisible? Fine. But they had absolutely no idea what was coming. Because, you see, I had my own way too. That night, while they were out, probably clinking glasses and congratulating themselves on their perfect little exclusive family vacation, I went back to our hotel room and I got to work. I was just going to sit at a separate table anymore. Oh no. I was about to remove myself from their equation entirely. And they were about to feel the full impact of that. I pulled up my mail, opened all those reservation confirmations, and a grim little smile touched my lips. Because guess what? I had booked everything. The luxurious hotel suites, my name on the reservation, The comfortable rental car they were cruising around in, my credit card securing it. The dinner reservations at those exclusive restaurants, my account. And that fabulous resorts spa day Susan had been gushing about for weeks. Oh yes, it booked that too, a little surprise it planned before understanding the full extent of their ways. So, I canceled everything. Methodically. One by one. I didn't just delete them, I wiped their entire vacation itinerary clean off the map. Their plush rooms, canceled. Their convenient rental car, gone. Their fancy dinner at that waterfront restaurant they were so looking forward to, not happening. I even took a certain satisfaction in calling the spa and very politely informing them that Susan would, unfortunately, not be attending her scheduled pampering. And then, with a sense of lightness I hadn't felt in days, I packed my bags, took the rental car and I left. While they were busy toasting to their impeccable family bonds, I was already miles down the highway, heading towards Charleston. I booked myself a gorgeous luxury suite, ordered a delicious room service meal, and sat out on the balcony watching the ocean, finally at peace. Meanwhile, back in Hilton Head, blissful ignorance was about to collide head-on with reality. Panic was about to set in. I woke up in Charleston the next morning feeling refreshed. Truly refreshed for the first time in what felt like an eternity. The ocean breeze was drifting through my open balcony door as I sipped my coffee, stretched out on a plush lounge chair, just watching the waves roll in. Pure bliss. Then my phone started vibrating. Mark. I let it ring. Then Susan's name flashed up. Ignored. Then Mark again. Then Richard. With a small, satisfied smile, I switched my phone to silent. Lady finally noticed. I could almost picture the scene Richard grumbling as he stepped out of bed, only to be met by a stern still manager at the door. Sir, there appears to be an issue with your reservation. Susan, mid-minus stretch, reaching for her phone to check the day's itinerary, only to find a cascade of cancellation emails. And Mark, rubbing his temples, still has tail half-mocha voice escalated from mild irritation to a full irritation to a full irritation to a full height reek. No rooms. No car. No meticulously planned agenda. I smiled into my coffee. A few hours later, when the silence from my end had apparently become unbearable for them, I decided to check my messages. It was a barrage. Mark, where are you? Mark, what the ATLL is going on? Mark, you need to FIXTHIS and OW. I decided, just for a bit of fun, to pick up his next call. Where are you? Mark demanded the second I answered, his voice tight with panic. Charleston, I replied calmly. A beat of silence. Charleston, what the hell are you doing there? Enjoying my vacation, I said, letting the sweetness drip from my tone. More silence. I could hear chaotic voices in the background. Susan was audibly yelling at some pure hotel staff member, and Richard was swearing a blue streak under his breath. You canceled everything? Mark finally asked, his voice lower now, laced with disbelief. Yes, I confirmed. He sucked in a sharp breath. Do you have any idea what you've done? My parents have nowhere to stay. We had plans. You left us stranded. Oh no, I said, my voice dripping with mock concern. That must be so uncomfortable. Mark was silent again, the echo of his own dismissive words probably ringing in his ears. I continued, you all wanted me to be separate. So, I just gave you exactly what you wanted. This is insane, he snapped. You need to come back. I actually laughed. No, Mark. I really don't. And I hung up. I found out later just how spectacularly things unraveled for them. With the resort fully booked, they had to scramble, ending up in some dingy roadside motel a good 20 minutes away from anywhere nice. You know the type, flickering neon sign, questionable stains on the carpet, and that persistent weird smell in the air. No rental car entry lying on Uber S, but Hilton Head isn't exactly teeming with ride-share drivers. Surge pricing must have hit them like a ton of bricks. And that fancy dinner Richard had been boasting about for weeks, utterly booked solid by the time they tried to salvage it. They ended up at some Jodorek tourist trap surrounded by screaming children and mediocre seafood. Susan apparently threw an epic tantrum at the spa when she discovered her precious reservation was gone, demanding they fit her in. They didn't. I got all these delightful little nuggets from the string of angry texts Mark kept sending. Mom is furious. She was humiliated at the spa. Dad is losing his mind over the restaurant. I hope you're happy. Oh, I was. I thought that would be the peak of their discomfort, a little taste of their own medicine. But then, something truly interesting happened. A few hours later, my phone buzzed. Not Mark. This time, it was a message from Sarah, Mark's cousin. Hey, just wanted to say, I heard what happened. And honestly, good for you. I frowned, rereading it. Sarah and I had always been friendly, but we weren't close. Wait, what do you mean? I texted back. Her response made my stomach clench. They did the same thing to Mark's ex-wife. I sabbled upright. Mark's ex-wife. HED always painted such a benign picture of his first marriage. Said they just grew apart, no drama, just irreconcilable differences. It never had a reason to question it. What do you mean? I typed again, my fingers trembling slightly. She went on a family trip with them, Sarah explained. They treated her like absolute garbage the entire time. Made her sit at a separate table, ignored her, acted like she wasn't even there. She left halfway through. Filed for divorce a month later. My heart was pounding in my chest. I didn't say anything before because I figured you knew, Sarah continued. But seeing what they did to you, I realized he never told you, did he? No, he hadn't. Because if he had, I never, ever would have agreed to this trip. If he had told me, I would have known this wasn't just their way. This was a calculated, cruel pattern. And Mark, he had known exactly what was coming. And he had let it happen anyway. That night, Mark called again. This time I answered, my voice cold. I need you to fix this, he said immediately, his voice low, tight with a frustration that was clearly not about my well-being. No, you don't understand. My parents... Oh, I understand perfectly, I cut him off, my newfound knowledge fueling my resolve. This wasn't about some quirky traditions, Mark. This was about control. You knew they were going to do this to me. You stood by and let it happen. A heavy silence. Then, defensively, who told you that? Bingo. I let out a short, harsh laugh. So it's true. I was the first one you threw to the wolves, was I? More silence. Then, that familiar sigh. Look, my parents, they can be a little difficult. But they mean well. Mean well? I scoffed. Mark, they don't even see me as part of this family. He hesitated. And in that hesitation, I knew everything. He was going to fight for me. He never had. Come back, he said, his voice softer, trying a different tactic. Let's just fix this. I stared out at the dark ocean, the waves crashing rhythmically against the shore, a stark contrast to the turmoil inside me. No, I said again, my voice absolutely steady now. I think I've already fixed it. And I hung up. After that call, my mind was racing. Mark had known. HED watched this horror show play out before with his ex-wife Rachel, and he still let me walk straight into the same trap. The fury I felt was rapidly solidifying into a steely resolve. I was done. But something was still nagging at me. If HED lied about something so significant, what else was he hiding? Driven by a need for the whole truth, I did some digging. I opened Facebook and searched for Rachel. Her profile was private, but I scanned her mutual friends, looking for a familiar name. Then I saw her sister, Lauren. Her profile had public posts. I scrolled back, finding a post from around the time Rachel and Mark split. Never let a man's family destroy you. Never let them convince you that you're less than you are. My sister deserved better. We all tried to warn her. Never again. My stomach twisted. Further down, a comment from Sarah, Mark's cousin. I wish she had listened to us. At least she's free now. Listen to them? My heart was pounding. I hesitated for a long moment, then took a deep breath and typed out a message to Lauren. Hey, this is going to sound really random, but I think we need to talk. She responded within minutes. I was wondering when you do reach out. A chill went down my spine. So you know who I am? Yeah, Lauren replied. We've been waiting for this to happen. Waiting? What do you mean, we? Rachel was the first, you know, Lauren wrote. And she sure was the last. My breath caught. What are you saying? I'm saying Mark has done this before. More than once. His parents have done this before. More than once. And if you're talking to me right now, I'm guessing you just went through it too. I felt physically sick. This was just a dysfunctional family quirk. This was a game to them. A cruel, twisted tradition they inflicted on every woman Mark brought into his life. They never saw any of us as family. Just obstacles or perhaps entertainment. And Mark, he enabled it. Every single time. Why didn't anyone tell me? I typed the words feeling hollow. We tried, Lauren said. Or, people tried with Rachel. But Mark always makes sure his girlfriends stay isolated. He tells them his family just has quirks or traditions. He makes sure they don't ask too many questions. Did he ever tell you Rachel was the problem? I closed my eyes. He had. HED painted Rachel as difficult, as someone who never understood his precious family, someone who always created drama over insignificant things. But now, I saw the sickening truth. Rachel hadn't been dramatic. She had been trapped. And now, so was I. Or at least I had been. I didn't sleep that night. The realization that I'd wasted years on this man, on this family, burned in my chest. But there was also a confusing undercurrent. Why had Mark been so frantic on the phone? Why the desperation? At 6 a.m. I got my answer. A text from an unknown number. Mom, this is Officer Daniels with the Hilton Head Police Department. We need to speak with you regarding a missing persons report filed by your husband. I shot up in bed, nearly knocking my phone to the floor. A missing persons report? My mind scrambled as I dialed the number. The second the officer picked up, I blurted out, I'm fine. I'm not missing. There was a pause. Mom, are you saying you left voluntarily? Yes, obviously I left voluntarily. My husband knows exactly where I am. HES been calling me non-stop. The officer sighed. Your husband reported that you left without explanation and haven't been answering his calls. He said he was concerned for your safety. I clenched my jaw so hard my teeth ached. This wasn't concern. This was manipulation. This was control. Mark hadn't been worried about me. HED been worried about losing control of me, trying to force me back. Taking a deep breath, I said, Officer, I am perfectly fine. I am in Charleston. I left Hilton Head by my own choice. I am not missing, and I do not want my husband contacting me. Another pause. Would you like to file a formal request for no further contact, ma'am? I hesitated for only a second. Then a decisive exhale. Yes. Yes, I would. And just like that, with those few words, I hammered the first legal nail into the coffin of my marriage. Not even an hour later, my phone buzzed with a new text. This time, it was Susan. I cannot believe you would humiliate us like this. I actually laughed out loud. Humiliate them? The audacity. I ignored it. Then, another. You made Mark involve the police? Do you have any idea how this looks? Oh, I made Mark involve the police? I rolled my eyes and took another defiant sip of my excellent Charleston coffee. The messages kept flooding in. This family has done nothing but try to welcome you. You're being incredibly selfish. You need to come back and fix this. And then, the one that made my blood run cold if you don't come back, Mark is going to make things very difficult for you. I froze. That wasn't even subtle. It was a direct threat. I sat back, rereading that message over and over. I had thought this was just about their petty control, their sick family games. But this was something much darker. They weren't just trying to humiliate me. They were trying to break me. And if I didn't act fast, Mark was poised to make sure they succeeded. I stared at Susan's text, the words burning into my brain. If you don't come back, Mark is going to make things very difficult for you. It wasn't a warning, it was a chilling promise. I could feel the shift, the escalation. This wasn't just them being cold or dismissive anymore. This was a declaration of war. I was clearly expected to roll over and surrender. Not this time. Oh, definitely not this time. I cracked my knuckles, took a deep, steadying breath, and sent a single, concise message back to Susan. Perfect. Let's make things difficult then. Then, with a newfound sense of clarity and purpose, I booked a hotel conference room right there in Charleston. And I invited everyone: Mark, his loving parents Richard and Susan, and Sarah, the cousin who opened my eyes. Because if they wanted a war, I was going to bring the battlefield right to their doorstep. The next morning, I sat in that sterile conference room, waiting. The long, polished wooden table was set with nothing but bottles of water and a thick, palpable silence of anticipation. I didn't have to wait long. The door slammed open, and Mark stormed in first, his jaw clenched so tight I swore I could hear his teeth grinding. His parents, Richard and Susan, followed close behind, Susan's heels clicking sharply, an angry rhythm against the floor. Richard's face already flushed a deep, furious red. Sarah slipped in last, looking hesitant, her arms crossed over her chest. She gave me a small, almost imperceptible nod. I had no idea if she was there as a witness, a reluctant mediator, or just for the inevitable drama. I leaned back in my chair, projecting a calm I didn't entirely feel. Glad you could all make it. Mark's voice was a razor's edge. What the hell is this? I offered a slow, deliberate smile. A conversation? You've all been so eager to talk, tell me your ways. So, let's talk. Richard scoffed, folding his arms tightly across his chest, a caricature of indignation. You think this is funny? No, I said, my voice surprisingly calm and even. I don't think it's funny at all. I think it's pathetic. I think you people play sick, twisted little games with the women in your family, and you finally picked the wrong one. Susan's eyes narrowed into slits. You abandoned us. I laughed then. A real, genuine laugh, tinged with disbelief. Oh, I abandon you. That's rich, isn't it? Coming from the people who spent an entire vacation meticulously pretending I didn't exist? Mark exhaled harshly, his knuckles white as he gripped the back of a nearby chair. You're blowing this completely out of proportion. And that was it. That was the spark. I slammed my hands down on the table, the sudden sound making Suze unphysically flinch. I am your WIFE. My voice echoed in the room, cold, sharp, and filled with a fury it kept leashed for far too long. Damn it, not some random outsider you can just dismiss. I am your WIFE, and you stood by and let them treat me like I was less than nothing. I jabbed a finger directly at Mark. And why owe you? You knew this was the first time. You knew exactly what was happening, what they were doing, and you let it happen anyway. His face, for the first time, paled. Susan jumped in quickly, her voice high-pitched, pitched and defensive. We were just following tradition. Bullshit, I shot back, the word cracking like a whip. It's control. It's a disgusting test. And you systematically fail every single woman who has the misfortune of walking into this family. Mark just shook his head, still trying to downplay it. You're overreacting. I grabbed my phone, pulled up the damning messages from Lauren, Rachel's sister, and threw it onto the table right in front of him. Read it. He hesitated, his eyes darting from the phone to my face. Read. Slowly, reluctantly, Mark picked up the phone. I watched his face tighten, his jaw clench again as he scrolled through the exchange. Then he threw the phone down as if it had burned his fingers. This isn't proof of anything. Richard crossed his arms, ever the loyal soldier. You're just digging up old stories. It has nothing to do with us. I turned my gaze to Susan. Is that right, Susan? Because just last night you sent me a very interesting message. A message threatening me. You told me that if I didn't come back, Mark would make things difficult for me. Her mouth snapped shut, a flicker of panic in her eyes. Sarah let out a low, almost impressed whistle. Wow. Mark spun towards his mother, his eyes narrowing dangerously. You did what? Susan stiffened, drawing herself up. I was just trying to make her understand. Understand, WHAT? Mark's voice rose, cracking with a new emotion. Was that betrayal? That you've been playing this manipulative game for years? That you did the exact same thing to Rachel? Richard shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Susan shot him a venomous look, but the damage was done. Mark's jaw twitched. Jesus Christ, he whispered, the fight seeming to drain out of him. And just like that, I saw it. The crack. The tiny, almost invisible fracture in his carefully constructed wall of loyalty to his parents. The moment he finally truly realized that I hadn't been wrong. That I had never been wrong. Mark turned back to me. And for the very first time since this whole nightmare began, he actually looked unsure. Lost. I just stared at him, waiting. Waiting to see if he would finally say something that mattered, something genuine. But then he ran his hands through his hair and sighed, the old reflex kicking in. I can fix this. My stomach plummeted. That was it. That was his first instinct. Not an apology. Not remorse. Just fixing the optics. I leaned back, exhaling slowly, a profound sense of disappointment settling over me. You really, truly don't get it, do you? Silence filled the room, thick and heavy. I stood up, calmly adjusting my bag on my shoulder. I'm not coming back, Mark. That snapped him out of it. Wait, what? I'm done. His eyes widened, a flicker of genuine panic now. You're serious? Sarah's noted from her corner. Dude, how have you not figured that out by now? Susan's voice rose again, shrill and indignant. This is ridiculous. You're throwing away your entire marriage over a simple misunderstanding. I shook my head, a small, sad smile on my lips. No, Susan. You threw it away. You, and Richard, and your sick, twisted way of treating people. Mark was just too weak, too complacent to ever stop it. Mark reached for my arm, a desperate gesture. Wait, let's just talk about this. Please. I held up my hand, stopping him in his tracks. No, Mark. You talk. You make excuses. You let them control you. But I am done listening. I grabbed my phone from the table and walked towards the door. Mark's voice followed me, almost desperate now. Wait, where are you going? I turned back at the doorway, looking at him, at all of them, one last time. I'm leaving. Susan's coughed, her face a mask of disbelief. You can't just leave a marriage. I met her gaze, my expression unreadable, calm, and final. Watch me. And then I walked out the door and didn't look back. It took 6 long months to finalize the divorce. Mark tried everything in the book, begging, blaming, even trying to gaslight me by accusing me of overreacting to family quirks. But I never wavered. I never looked back. Sarah actually stayed in touch. She told me that things pretty much imploded in the family after I left. Apparently, Mark finally confronted his parents, and it wasn't pretty. Richard, true to form, called him weak. Susan burst into tears, dramatically claiming I had brainwashed her precious son. But for the first time, Sarah said, Mark seemed to see them for who they really were. It didn't change anything for me, of course. I was already long gone. I moved back to Charleston permanently, found a beautiful new apartment, reconnected with dear old friends, and slowly, surely started rebuilding my life, piece by piece. One night, months and months later, I got a text from an unknown number. It was Mark. I see it now. I'm sorry. I stared at those words for a long time. Then I deleted the message. Because for the first time in years, I was truly, unequivocally free.